Hello everyone, this is Big Money Chasing Big Money by investing in an online casino. This video is again a bit extraordinary as long as crypto markets are moving so heavily based on whale trades by the hedge funds. I don't really want to get into copy trading for now. However, in the meantime, I am ready to have some fun in an on-chain casino. I will show you why I think this platform will be the next big player in the market, what strategy I have figured out to slowly build up profits without taking too much risk, and why am I planning on being a serious investor in their upcoming NFTs and tokens. If you have been following my channel, you know that I am all about analytics and managing risk while finding ways to build income passively. This video, however, is going to be more about investing while having a bit of fun and making some gains in the meantime. The question arises, why am I even interested in playing a casino game if I am all about low-risk money making? It all started from a metaphor that I frequently use when I try to talk people out of trading with high leverage. I would say that high leverage trading is nothing less than gambling your funds away in a casino. In fact, a casino is much better, at least you're having fun and drinks are cheap, and if you play any game with double or nothing, at least you have a 50% chance of winning. Meanwhile, with high leverage trading, you are almost guaranteed to lose. As much as it was meant to be a joke, I never considered casinos to be trustworthy. I always had this feeling that the roulette tables must be somehow rigged, or the croupiers at the blackjack table are crooked, or something must be going on. Especially since I heard stories that if someone wins any big amount at the casino, the winner is not always guaranteed to walk away with the winnings, as usually there would be an investigation for alleged fraud. It seemed like the base model is that everyone loses at the casino, and if you win, you get accused of cheating. The point is that there is no real accountability with casinos. Nobody checks them if they have rigged equipment, apart from some government agencies that operate outside of public transparency. This is not the case when it comes to on-chain casinos. As long as the code of the game runs on a verifiable smart contract, the game you're playing can be trusted to be fair with the chances of winning and losing. This is not to say that as long as the casino is full of games that are based on smart contracts, players are going to win. It is only a guarantee that players can check and verify if the mechanics are fair or not. Crypto casinos like Rollbit and Stake.com have already made some quite big noise and turned serious betting volume, but those were still quite close to a digital version of the same physical casinos that I usually keep away from. There is a new kid on this block, however, with the name of Pigmo. Before I go on, I must emphasize that the only reason I got to know them is because their name is very similar to my online alias, Pigmoney. In fact, I'm not sure if Pigmo is not a short version of Pigmoney, but anyway, I have no connection to them whatsoever. I was just simply curious about the name and checked out why they were so sure about building a successful on-chain casino. It is important to know that Pigmo.com is not ready yet, even though a preview is already available for folks who are ready to test the platform, which might have some bugs still today. There are three main types of activities: crypto trading, self-developed games of fortune, and licensed casino games. So why are these so special? With crypto trading, there is an extreme leverage option up to 1000x. Now, this is obviously insane, but if you feel like you can grab an unstoppable meme coin pump, you can actually earn massive amounts just by wagering maybe $1 or even less. The self-developed games are seemingly simple. They have a dice game, Keno, Plinko, coin flip, roulette, the usual suspects. The important part here, though, is the fairness button. Unlike other sites where you have a pinky promise that they follow fairness guidelines, here you can actually verify the hash the game runs on is really legit. There are a lot of other features and games which will be added later on. As you can see in this preview website, there will be some live games, sports betting, license, slot games, everything that you might expect based on the previous experience with online casinos. So for me, it all shows that the team focuses heavily on fairness. So total control is handed over to the users. No surprises, no cheating, just fair games of chance. The benefit of having full control is that users can configure the risk level of the games they would play. Let me show you what I mean. This is a simple Wheel of Fortune game. Even though it might seem to be a typical money grab by gambling, the advantage here is that I can actually configure the risk settings by myself and I can run the game as I prefer. If I combine low risk settings with some analytics, with time I can actually make some money. I will show you how I do it by having a bit more than $100 in my wallet. I will try to double it, Hopefully it won't take too long. And I have to point out that even though I am going to explain this low-risk strategy for winning, by definition it is still gambling. And I know that this is not acceptable for everyone. Honestly speaking though, it is not riskier than crypto trading using high leverage. So the real game is in the originals category right here. The default view shows medium risk setting. The great thing is that it also shows you the odds of winning and losing. I would not really play the game with these settings. There is too much risk involved here for my taste. Even worse is the high risk category, where you can have basically just over 3% of winning big, but over 96% of losing your wager. Instead, I will choose low risk setting. Here the chances are much more friendly. There is 20% chance of losing the wager, 70% of winning by a multiplier of 1.2, and a 10% chance of winning by a multiplier of 1.5. So I will set my wager to $1, which is around 1% of my budget, and hit bet. The wheel spins, I have 80% chance of winning and 20% chance of losing. Now, based on chance estimation, on average, 1 out of every 5 spins will have a loss as a result. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to decrease my wager after a few winning rounds, expecting a losing round to manifest. Usually, I would cut my wager in half after 3 or 4 spins. After a winning streak of 6 or 7, I would decrease the wager even more. And here it is, I just had a loss. Lucky for me, by the time this loss occurred, I have already decreased my wager to $0.25, so my loss is not significant at all. Now I would set my wager amount back to default, which is $1 in this budget. I always try to have no more than 1% of my play money as a default wager amount. The second spin is another loss, so now I'm down by a full dollar. In this case, I would increase my wager by 2 and hit bet. I would need 3 winning bets to recover the loss. Okay, this is working. My $1 loss has been recovered by $1.2, so 20 cents of profits. I can now decrease the wager back to its original value, and after a few winning spins, I am decreasing my wager yet again, and I'll just keep spinning away until I hit a losing round. If I am in a winning streak, I better decrease the wager even more to secure my winnings and not risk it all on further spins. And here we go, another loser spin where I only lost 25 cents, which is totally acceptable for me, back to the basic wager of $1. I have another loss, so time to increase the wager to recover. After a few winning spins, again I'm decreasing the wager, and I will keep doing this and keep my risk profile to a minimum. Now it is very important that just as much as there can be winning streaks, losing streaks can also happen. So I must remember that even though this method of doubling the wager after every loss would work in most cases, I also have a limit of $8 as a maximum, with an extreme amount of $16 to make sure I don't multiply my losses into a full liquidation by a series of losing spins. Logic would dictate that it is highly unlikely that someone would spin more than 4 losing rounds in a row with something that has a 20% chance of happening at all. However, this is absolutely within the range of possibilities. In the beginning, I considered 5 consecutive losing rounds to be basically impossible to happen, but I have to say that I have experienced more than 5 winning rounds and more than 5 losing rounds one after the other, and it was an expensive lesson to be learned. So even if it would seem tempting to increase the wager to a high amount after a few losing rounds, it is a risk I would avoid taking. Let's just take the case of a $100 budget. My maximum wager is $8 with an extreme override of $16. This is basically a simplified martingale strategy where a new position size is increased after each losing position. The biggest risk in this game is human nature, which would include risk-taking and lack of patience. During my testing phase, I would usually be profitable as long as I could keep my composure and stay disciplined with my wagers, even if it meant that I had to spend more time spinning to reach my goals. On the flip side, the only times I lost big was when I grew impatient and I had the inner argument with myself that after so many losing rounds, it is impossible to have yet another loss. But guess what? It is possible. I think my record was maybe 9 losing rounds in a row. A quick calculation would tell you that by the end I wagered $256, which I also lost. This was a loss of $510 altogether, simply by not considering the fact that losing streaks exist, even if a losing spin only has a 20% chance of happening. The point is that with cautious and disciplined approach, winning is likely as long as there is time enough to spin enough to make the losses back. So here is the recipe for making gains in this game. Time, focus, and patience. As long as I have the time to spend with farming the winning spins by basically a few cents of a dollar per spin, and as long as I am disciplined enough not to override my own rules, and I have the mental strength to keep my attention focused on counting the winning and losing spins, I could adjust my wagers accordingly, and I will probably come out of this with profits. In this recording, I have spent just under 1 hour to reach my original target, which was double my balance, starting from 110, finishing with 220. The other important point is to set up a stop loss level. My method with calculating the stop loss is rather simple. If I start with a $100 budget and I reach $200, I will set my stop loss to break-even levels, which means I will stop spinning if my balance goes back to $100. If my balance grows to $300, I will stop if I lose enough to be at $200. If I reach $400, I will move my SL to $300 and so on. So basically, it's an overly simplistic trailing stop loss that leaves enough room for swings, which are quite normal in this game, but still prevents losses to spin out of control. It is another mental practice to withdraw the profits from my balance, because maintaining a high balance gives the false impression that I have that much money to play with and to potentially risk, which is obviously a dangerous approach. So I hope I managed to make it clear that I am actually using an on-chain gambling site for not really gambling, but applying some solid risk management and trading strategies. Please note that in the beginning, I lost money with this. However, after I figured out how to be profitable, I have been mostly winning. It is also important to understand that this is not a guaranteed recipe for success. I mean, the more time I spend playing, the bigger the likelihood of hitting an extreme losing streak. Nonetheless, with proper risk management and wallet control, I would not get into major losses. I expect actually to turn smaller profits day by day as my mental focus allows. So it's not just the freely modifiable risk settings in the games, but the rewards are equally important in this platform. I have to say I have never seen such an abundant rewards system before. There is a rakeback, a daily, a weekly, and monthly reward, all coming back to the users from the transaction fees. The rakeback is basically an immediate payback from the house fees. Basically, you get back 3% of your wager amount, half of it immediately to your balance, and the other half will be equally distributed to the rewards calendar for the next 7 days. The daily bonus is claimable every day, and it reflects the total wager of the previous day. You get 3% from your wagers that end up in profits and 4% of the wagers that end in loss. The weekly bonus is based on a similar logic, except it considers the weekly wager amount with 3% from the overall wager. The same applies to the monthly reward. You get 3% back from profitable and losing wagers. There are also different ranks depending on how active a player is, and each level up milestone grants further bonuses. There is also a rakeback bonus, which can be simply activated by claiming the bonuses on a regular basis. This would increase the rakeback rate to 15% for a temporary period of time. All things added up, the rewards are just insane. I actually reached the stage where I can only wager the amount of my bonuses without actually depositing anything to the platform, so I'm quite happy with this model. The dream scenario is to have the focus and composure to use the wheel game on a regular basis. That would in turn grant enough transaction volume for the bonuses to be significant enough for a comfortable and profitable game. Pigmo is great in combining provably fair games of chance with the most effective community building elements of Web3. There is going to be a set of NFTs which will grant further benefits to holders, and there will be also a PIG token which will be tradable. Now, there is no public info about the tokenomics just yet, but based on what I can gather so far, here is everything there is to know. The fixed set of NFTs will be available to whitelisted wallets. To be whitelisted, community members can complete different missions, achieve certain targets, and some other major NFT communities will also have the chance to opt in to the whitelist. The most important factor here is the token airdrops for every Pigmo NFT that is being staked. As I understand, community members who stake their Pigmo NFTs on the platform will get a daily airdrop of a certain amount of PIG tokens. The tokens would then be released within a 24-month vesting period to avoid major price fluctuations. Furthermore, I expect a buyback and burn mechanism to be implemented in the tokenomics, which means that the team would use part of the platform profits to buy back PIG tokens and then burn them, effectively decreasing the total supply, therefore increasing its value. All things considered, this combination of NFTs, staking, buybacks and burns, the tokenization looks rather solid and comprehensive. I don't have the specific of the percentages and the exact details of the tokenomics just yet, but based on the info I managed to gather, all this looks quite promising. So what is the potential here that I expect from the token? When analyzing the potential of a token before launch, it is a good idea to see how the peers and competitors in the same market segment performed. I would consider Rollbit and Stake.com to be the two biggest players in the sector, but as Stake doesn't have its own token, I will consider Sol Casino instead. RLB and SCS have much less utility and complexity compared to PIG, so I expect it to overperform both of these tokens in the medium term. Checking the price history of RLB, today it stands around 4,000% up since launch, and that's a multiplier of 40x. Taking a look at SCS, it is at 370%, which is 3.7x. Even though both of them had massive run-ups around the end of last year, they are now either consolidating or coiling up for the next move to the upside. Considering how well the Pigmo ecosystem is put together, I would expect nothing less than a 40x increase in valuation from whatever the launch price of the PIG token would be. I am very bullish on AI, gaming, and GambleFi tokens for this year, and with the bull season coming into full swing, I expect some profits made by crypto degens to find their ways into a well-built platform like Pigmo. I will keep on trying to obtain some more whitelist allocations for the Pigmo NFTs, just so I would also earn PIG tokens passively, and I plan to invest all of it to the medium term, realizing profits only after it did a 40 or 50x increase in its value. I think that this is a realistic goal, but this is only my personal opinion. Needless to say, there is no guarantee for that. Alright guys, this is all about Pigmo. There are many more things to come. Please remember the platform and the project is still very early in its development phase, so you are not late at all. Of course, getting in ahead of everyone else has its own benefits, but please make sure you do your own research before jumping into any sort of investment. Let me know what you think, or if you also have some winning strategies that you could share. I would love to know about it. You will find all the links in the description field as usual. If you feel like trying it out, please make sure you tread carefully. I cannot emphasize enough that even though all the ideas are shared are considered to be low risk in their own category, it still belongs to gambling, so please bear that in mind. Alright guys, take care, big money out.